go already. All righty. We're live. Let's give it a few minutes here. Look, this is all the subjects here. You can't see it, but I've got a million of them. Now,
I can't see any of it, but yeah, like I told you, ask me whatever. I answer it, truthfully. It's, people are going to like it or they won't. Bottom line.
Good evening, everyone. We'll give it a few minutes, but as promised, the legend, Jason Hawes, is joining us with his NJP background custom design for this.
Wait, I created this, though. Hang on. That's mine.
You can't say that. I own that. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I just told you. I'm like, wow, you're a New Jersey thing. Looks damn good next to my logo.
Jason, thank you so much. I mean, again, me, like everyone else out there, watch Ghost Hunters from the beginning. You guys are the pioneers, deserve all the credit in the world for most paranormal ghost hunting shows and TikTokers and YouTubers. You guys were the ones brave enough to put it out there and say, this is what we do.
And being authentic.
Yeah, and being real.
Thank you. And that means a lot. It's to think of something that we had turned down the opportunity to do like 3 or 4 times prior before we finally accepted it. It's been an amazing ride. It really has. It's to think, we're 20 years into it now. And it's mind blowing.
I want to go really, there's a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about, but the debunking part, I mentioned the video that you posted, and that's why I'll reference it. You were talking about, I don't remember his name. Maybe you could, Beardo.
Oh, Beardo, yeah. And Beardo had made a video, and he was talking about. Well, he brought some stuff up. He had talked about Tori and Cody, and then he had brought up Grant and questions throughout the past that happened. Grant had a collar tug in a live episode when we were filming on Peapatch Island, and it was a 6-hour live event. And it's tough because some people are like, well, Jason saw it and he felt this way. Well, you got to understand, I didn't see anything because it's pitch black. You don't realize that. And man, you've investigated. It's pitch black. The only thing you can ever see are usually the little red IR lights. So I didn't see it, and I never really paid much attention to it. I heard there was controversy, and I had asked Grant, and Grant said, no, it was all true. So I can only go on that. But even on live TV, I looked through his jacket. I did everything I could. I could only do so much. It's, I got an IFB in my ear, so I'm hearing my producer, trying to see what's going on. I'm trying to see if I'm able to have an experience, listening to Grant say he had an experience, and go from there. But a lot of people also questioned if that's where our relationship fell apart. And so Beardo had made a video, and I might not agree with a lot of what he says, but he was most of the way respectful. So I was like, what the hell, I haven't responded to it yet. I just started screwing around on YouTube, trying to get used to it. It's so I was like, I'll make a video to that. I didn't think it would go crazy viral like it did, but
here's the thing too. 2 things as part of that video. Debunking. You guys, again, that's how you built your foundation, on the fact that you didn't go in. Every building wasn't haunted. You went in there, you listened to the claims, you interviewed the people, you did an investigation, and then you found what you could found. And again, a really good clip in that particular video was the woman laughing, and you guys find the speaker. And then he made a comment he made a comment how you didn't debunk as much as the years went on into Ghost Nation and all that. But you guys really did continue. It's not like you ever changed.
No, the thing is, so when we first started the show, the first season, I think we did 10 or 13 episodes. So, so it was pretty much, this is what they ordered. And that's, we had filmed those and go on. And then the following season, they started ordering like 23, 24, 25 episodes a year. So we were filming year round, but filming year round doesn't mean that all those episodes air, because I can film 2-3 cases in a month, but the network owns its channel. So it can sit there and say, all right, well, we're going to take this investigation and this investigation and put them together, and we're going to do away with that investigation. We're in full control of production, and I also see all the cuts before the shows air, and sign off on them, or say this shouldn't be there, that should be changed. but the network has full say on which shows air on their network. So, I mean, every time we filmed, there were always a bunch of places throughout the season, a ton of them, that would never air because the network chose not to air those episodes. They chose to just air the ones that they wanted to air because they own the network. So, I mean, you're still debunking, but the network is like, well, but we're using this one because, you caught something. So, and that's what a lot of people don't realize, especially when you're filming year round. I mean,
yeah.
We on an average year, we were probably filming, 70, 75 investigations, and people were only seeing 30 to 40 of them.
See, that kind of reminds me, like almost like music, how they make an album, there's 30 tracks and they have to narrow it down to like what the record company.
And a lot of people realize that. I mean, it's, it takes a lot of time, and that's why, later on it got to the point where you'll see where we were doing there was always 2 episodes or 2 locations in every show. And I was just like, I can't keep up this pace. It's killing us. So we got into huge arguments and everything else. And finally, and that's when you'll start seeing there were like, this episode might only have 1 location. That episode might have 2. So there were a few trickled in and then started winding down to a majority of like 1 location per episode. But it was because we couldn't keep up that pace. It was just insane.
Any of those that you remember that were good in your opinion that didn't make it? Like, what's your favorite of the ones that wound up on the cutting room floor?
Well, we did a lot of residential homes, which are always my favorite because those you're truly helping people out. But it seemed like the networks wanted to always air these big locations that people could go and see or check out themselves. And I understand that, but TAPS was created to help out people who were scared to be in their homes. So those were the ones that always meant the most to me. And a lot of those were the ones that you would find were being cut, and they were just using the commercial locations, which kind of sucked. It really did.
They wanted to say they want sensational. That's what they
want.
Well,
they wanted large locations and all this elaborate B-roll and places where people could sit there and say, well, I'm going to go on a tour at Eastern State and check the place out. It's not like they can go to Jim's house and walk through his house and check what the hell, what's going on there. Get thumbs up on it. Yeah, you see that?
Yeah, I did. What was that? Was that you?
I think it's one of these. It's like the camera automatic. Oh, there you go.
That's the iPhone. The iPhone.
Yeah. Here, John. John, this one's for you, John.
I don't know.
John, there you go.
Look at that.
Yeah.
It's close to Valentine's Day. I'll throw that at you.
Oh. You don't clip in that one for TikTok, right?
Yeah. Put your name next to it. Here you go, John. Ready? There you go.
Well, there's a good segue because it kind of segues right into what I want to talk about now. John Zaffis was on, and I kind of reached out to you a little bit about this, but I wanted to save it for. I didn't realize, again, a lot of people that know you and know John and they know you from TV. They don't really think about what you did before TV because most of the paranormal teams they see, they know from TV and that's about it. They don't think if they were a legitimate paranormal group helping people doing private cases like you and John Zaffis and others. You work with John. Did you work with John a lot?
I did. Yeah. John, that sick bastard. He's a good friend of mine. I love that guy. Yeah, we had some rough cases together too. So I mean, you can go back and see that the TAPS website and at one point it was Rhode Island Paranormal existed, 10, 15 years even before the show existed. So we weren't casted to make a TV show. The show was about a group that existed. And I think that's what always made Ghost Hunters different because it was about TAPS, and TAPS was a real group that existed long before the show. But yeah, John and I had worked on some serious cases. We got ourselves involved in. The TAPS website had been contacted. I can think of one, and this. All right, so I love John. so I get contacted by a lady who's dealing with some weird landlords, and come to find out, John and I go there, and I mean it's the middle. There's a blizzard happening on us, and it was up in Maine, and all of a sudden we realized that cult members are in the houses across the street that are all boarded up, watching everything we're doing. And the owner of the house, and down in the basement, there was a piece of wood covering a little door thing in the basement. When you went through there, it was the big room with all cult symbols drawn all over, and there was another way that they could get in the back. John and I got in the car. I was driving John's car at that point. I think it was an old Ford Escort wagon.
Oh, nice.
And there was a blizzard happening, and John's windshield wiper broke. And I'm driving. And
I think I've seen this movie. I think that.
Oh my God. Let me tell you, his window gets stuck in the down position. I'm driving, driver's window, and I'm driving this car in a blizzard. We got this guy Andy, who's a teammate, in the back seat, literally laying in the sleeping bag. He's under 2-3 inches of snow because it's coming right through my window. I can't do anything about it. But yeah, they were trying to run us off the road. They were trying to do
Jesus.
They were trying to get to us. I mean, it was a scary scenario because they knew who we were. We didn't know exactly who they were. I mean, at one point we pulled over, and I even said to John, I'm like, gonna have to pull over. We're gonna have to get the tire iron out of the car and just call it a day, see what happens. And he's like, all right. I'm like, John, man, this is kind of more my life, but we'll make it happen. So yeah, we ended up getting out of there. We made it. So
what was the whole circumstance around you guys even coming in there? Was there an issue in the one home and they were in another just watching you guys?
Yeah, so the lady was renting the home.
Gotcha.
From these people who were involved, and she had told them that she was having us in, but she didn't tell us. If I remember correctly, she didn't tell us at that time. But so either way, they were not amused with us being there, and they were doing some weird ritual stuff down in the basement. I mean, they would sneak in through this one area of the back basement and do their ritual while murder children were in the house. I mean, it was a weird situation, one that I've never been in before, and I prefer never to be in again.
So she called you to help her because of, and then I mean, that
because of all the activity going on in the house. But the activity going on in the house is because these people are doing rituals in the basement.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, John and I have worked on some interesting cases together. I mean, we go way back. I knew John back when we were both young. I'll tell you.
Yeah, John always says how he knows all of your kids, and he known them since they were.
He was around before. He was around before most of my kids. I think when I started hanging out with John, I think I had only had Samantha.
Wow.
And Sam's in her 30s. So yeah, John's been around with me for a long time.
See, this is what, again, I love this stuff because, again, as someone who's been doing this for a while now, again, everybody thinks TV. They don't think of the people, again, the real deal people, you, John, who were really, really out there, not just going on TikTok, YouTube, or whatever, into ABC Asylum. These guys were out there in the middle of nowhere trying to help people who claim to have real issues.
In a blizzard, yeah, and driving a piece of shit Ford Escort wagon. But yeah, because that's what it was always about, trying to help out everybody we could. And with that, you put yourself in some bad situations. But no, I mean there was no social media back then. There was none of that stuff.
But that's what people like to hear about. Like even John came on and he brought that up. And again, everybody in the chat there was just like, "Oh my God, this is stuff we always hear about." The haunted object, whatever. The TAPS cases and the TV cases and stuff. But I love hearing about the older stuff. Like I said, that you guys, especially like John, I know, and I respect the hell out of John, to know that I didn't even know you guys worked together at all. I thought he was always with Ed and Lorraine and doing whatever with them, and it fascinates me,
Yeah, and like I said, and it was definitely an interesting. We had some interesting times together. Like I said, I mean, people trying to run us off the road as we're driving, and it was crazy.
Did you ever think of any others that you worked on that were kind of stood out above?
Well, I mean, we worked on a bunch, and so John and myself, I mean, we'd get contacted by numerous religious organizations to go in and write up preliminary reports on so-called possession cases and demonic haunting cases. So there were a lot, but a lot of them, we always kept everything under like a confidentiality agreement.
Right.
You know, could I go write a million books about people's cases? Yeah, but it was never about putting them in the public eye. It was about trying to help them out as privately as possible. And that's what it's always been about. I mean, to this day, you have no idea how many times I've been offered for, tell us about some of these past investigations. We'll turn it into a motion picture. It's just not about that.
That's
for me.
personal and private.
Well, yeah, and it's always been about keeping it real, and I think that's the most important thing. TV comes and goes. It's been an avenue to help get the word out on the paranormal and help open the doors to other investigators and make it a topic that people could talk about. It's never been something that I didn't start this to become famous. I mean, it was never about that to me, and TV comes and goes, so I could give a damn about it.
Again, that I love the way you think, and when you say stuff like that, because there's whole generations of people, and I'm not knocking anybody for doing what they do and how they do it. I really don't. To each his own. But
I'm sure a few we can knock, but we won't.
Some do just get in it for that specific reason. They want to be on TV. They want to be famous. They want to.
But they don't
money.
Realize that there are, for lack of a better word, there are people who suffer trauma from this. I suffered trauma from it growing up. There's a sensitivity to this.
Yeah, and I can respectfully disagree with like what you just said, John. There's nothing wrong with it. There is, because a lot of times these people will, come on and start. First off, they've never been involved in investigations, and now they come on and they start either telling everybody that they're a demonologist or that they're an expert paranormal investigator. Tell me what the hell that means. Who the hell gave you a degree in paranormal investigation? So I've been doing this field for 30 something years, and I don't sit there and say I'm an expert paranormal investigator. No, I'm a guy who's been trying to figure out what is possible and how these things are possible. I'm not out there trying to promote myself as better than anybody else or some super, but I am the guy who I'll call bullshit if I see it. I mean, I got nothing behind that.
So the self-anointing that we're seeing out in this
it drives me crazy. You have no idea. You have no idea.
It drives us nuts. Trust me.
See, I'm trying to be. It
doesn't help the field. Yeah, it doesn't help the field. It hurts the field.
Yeah,
especially when these people.
It's not even just the field. It's what the damage that it does to people who are really suffering and going through stuff and looking for answers.
Social media has made things so much different when it comes to and TV as well.
Look,
I'm like everybody else. I love entertainment. Entertainment is great and has its place, but not when you're using it and you're going in and you're doing harm.
That's right, or at the cost of others who truly need your help. I mean, and you're going in, you have no idea what you're doing, and these people are relying on you to be the voice of knowledge and to be able to help them out. And a lot of times it's not happening, or you see these people who are actually using it for their own hidden agendas, and I just think that's the worst.
Well, you guys, again, the demonstration, the level that you guys set as far as how to investigate, you would counsel people. That's what I always liked about Taps, in the early days when I would watch the show.
There's integrity.
It's not always, putting on a big elaborate show with sage and holy water and you be gone, demon, be gone, spirit, open up the windows, leave the house, spirit. Sometimes it is just sitting down and counseling someone.
Yeah, and sometimes so if somebody is a religious individual, me bringing a religious individual into their home to do a blessing empowers that homeowner.
Right.
Well, then I'll do that. I'll do that because it empowers them. It makes them stronger. In return, they're taking control of their lives and their home again. But I'm not going to sit there and be like, I got to bring a priest in here and he's got to bless and we got to put salt in the doorways. And no, that's bullshit. Let's be honest. It just is. And it's not going to help anybody.
But that's all. You're right. And that's all part of it. Finding the right tools to help them, empower them, dealing with whatever's going on there.
Yeah, because you leave.
Depending on what their beliefs are and who they are as people and what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
100%.
And on the other side of that coin is not everything is paranormal.
Oh my God, yeah. Para is just the Greek word for beyond, so it's beyond the normal of what we're used
Right,
to.
right.
But of course, it covers this wide blanket. It covers this wide area. But no, I mean, not everything is paranormal. But some people could find, a haunted friggin' grocery bag if they think that's what's going to get the ratings.
Well, okay, let's jump into the you mentioned before.
I'm sorry. You want me to be more filtered, Chris? If you do, you called the wrong guy.
This is true. You mentioned demonologists and things of that nature. You worked in, like you said, cases with possession or assumed possession and things of that nature. What are your thoughts on angels and demons? Are they real?
So,
do they exist?
I look at it not from a religious standpoint, because I mean, if we want to sit there and track back, some people will get into back and forth, especially religious individuals. They'll get into a back and forth, and it's not about that for me. We got to remember that when it comes down to demonics or angelics, I believe more in inhuman type entities, things that have never walked the earth in human form. So there's things out there that are just inhuman, but there's also just negative things. Like if somebody is just a negative individual or just a miserable individual in life, they could be a miserable individual in death. So you got to look out for that. Do I believe in possession? I believe that 99.9% of possessions have nothing to do with the paranormal. I mean, it has nothing to do with real possession. It's usually overactive imaginations, overly religious, overly medicated, self-medicated, under-medicated. They have a lot more to do with mental issues than anything else. And those people need counseling. They need help. That is beyond what a paranormal investigator or demonologist is going to do at the times. And the problem is, we've had cases where we were sent to check on a so-called possession and found out that it had nothing to do with that. But then others have gone in after and been like, oh, this is a possession. So, and it's not. And it's sad because somebody needs help. But this person is using it to either promote their show, promote whatever, or just to benefit themselves and not help the person who's in dire need of their assistance.
I think about what a good 85% of the private care that we did where we would go in turned out to be medically explained, or the building and different things that were involved with that, and not paranormal.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we had a guy who, real quick, he told us he was seeing spirits everywhere in his home. And we went in there and we're talking to him, and we brought a friend of ours who was a medium into the home, and we're just talking to him. And then he pulls me to the side and he says, they took my license away from me because I see animals in front of me as well. They just appear in front of me, and one ran in front of my car and almost hit a child. And I said, you see animals? He said, yeah, there was no lie. He said, there was a bear in my bedroom last night.
And a lion.
And I looked at him, and believe me, this was his reality. I saw it written all over his face. He wasn't trying to be funny, or he wasn't making things up. It was his reality. And his girlfriend was the one who brought us in. And I mentioned to him about just going to the doctor for a checkup and maybe explaining some of the things that he's seeing, and maybe they would direct him to see somebody else. And I talked to the girlfriend into doing the same thing. But I knew that it wasn't paranormal related at all. This guy, his reality in here, all of that was legit and true.
And that's the thing. I mean, he needed help that was beyond paranormal investigation, and that's a lot of times that's what's needed.
Yeah, and again, it's those type of things, like you said. Another group can make worse just by going in and saying, we're going to cleanse the house of all these. Sometimes the placebo will help, but you don't know
if somebody's having a breakdown, whether it's medication or being off medications, or we actually had someone that was the boyfriend called us in. He was terrified for her, and it turned out that she had a lobotomy, and she was on certain medications that were creating massive hallucinations where she needed to get back into her doctor ASAP.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You need, when somebody's calling you in for something like that, they need to understand that they're opening up their entire lives to you, because you need to be able to go through what kind of medication they're on, what they're taking, what they should be taking, or things of that nature. And what kind of mindset are they in? Are all their movies based on ghosts and hauntings? Are all their books based on ghosts and hauntings? I mean, all these factors come into play because you got to get into the mindset of that individual.
But that's a really good point, because we've been in places, and I talked to John about this as well, where you go into a home and you see, like you said, the ghosts, the paranormal books, you see religious artifacts everywhere. And then they tell you you're the fourth or fifth group that has been in.
They want to be plugged in.
And you go, what am I doing here then?
And we've had that with the Taps family too, where they, Taps family groups have gone into these locations and they're not happy with that. They keep on looking for other people until finally they find a group that tells them what they want to hear. And it comes down to, when you call me into your house, you're not calling me in to be your friend. You're calling me in to try to figure out what's going on. And you're either going to hate me or love me, but either way, it's going to be due to my honesty, my brutal honesty. And, so we're just here to figure out the real answers. That's it.
Yeah.
So a question has come up. Do you believe in demonologists? Do you believe that?
I believe, yeah. So I believe that that's a tough call, because like there's people like John who's been involved in the field for so long. I mean, exactly. he's somebody who I can look at and say, that's a demonologist.
100%.
It's not somebody who read a couple books over the last year or two.
No, he's got the chops. He's
now is out calling themselves a demonologist. Because John's been studying this forever, and he's also been studying it under the whole guise of Christianity and all that stuff, where they talk about all that. And so I do believe in demonologists. I don't look at demonic or negative type entities as like what's written in the Bible.
Right. I feel the same way. And people are saying they love your brutal honesty. Believe me, you should have heard the conversation before the conversation.
I don't know that. The thing is, I've always been that kind of, I don't have a filter. I'm going to say it. And you've known me for a long time, me too.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is just, if you ask me a question, I'm not a politician. I'm going to tell you I'm just going to say it because when we're done talking, I want you never to sit there and think, well, did Jay mean this or that? No, I want you to be like, wow, that SOB meant this. And he made sure I knew it. So,
and again, I appreciate people like that. You, John Zaffis, and Chip Coffey are probably the three people that I've met since we've been doing the expo that ask a question, get an answer, whether you like it or not. It's the truth. You're going to give your opinion.
But you can respect that because
you know what you stand
into it. There's no subterfuge.
I think that's you. Honestly, I think that's the way it should be. It's that way. Where I stand. I know where you stand. We're never questioning that.
Yeah, but you can't play the fence when you're honest like that.
I don't play the fence.
But that's my point.
I don't play the fence.
But that's my point. A lot of people like to play that fence. They don't want to say what side or where they are so that they can hit pop all over.
No, I can try to say things nicer. And, it's funny because even my kids, they're like, Dad, geez, slow it down a little, be a little nicer. And I'm trying, but I'm a plumber out of New England. I say it the way it is.
I appreciate that. I really do, because again, there have been times where I asked you things or I just questioned you about certain things, and you were just like, this is what I feel. Even about situations, you were like, no, this is how I feel about this thing. Yeah. And I was like, wow, there's no, gray area there. This is, and
no misunderstanding.
I respect that.
When you and I first met, it was the first time we had met, you had this thought about me that it was funny because I remember I sat there and you and I talked and you're like, dude, I totally thought you were going to be an asshole. I was like, no, man, this is me. This is how I am. And have I ever changed? I mean, no. I've still been that person that you've always known.
I expected prima donna, arrogant, opinionated jerk off. I'll be honest with you. That's what I had heard from a few people. And I was like, Don't ruffle
But you
these
always got
guys'
to question
feathers.
the agenda, of those
Well,
people.
Sherry says, LOL, try to say things nicer.
I think it was actually Sherry who told me that about you, to be honest with you.
No, I've known Sherry a long time. I mean, and you want to talk about one of the best people out there. Like I've known Sherry, I know her kids, I know her parents, and I mean, she's somebody who, I mean, she's Italian. She'll tell you the way it is.
Oh,
She
yeah.
doesn't know.
Oh, yeah.
She's Italian in New England, which means everything.
Well, here's just real quick. I want to jump back to the Grant stuff because you brought up such a great point, and I don't think people get this when it comes to interpersonal relationships between people, marriages, friendships, anything. It can go from good to not good. I mean, when you spend a lot of time with people and opinions change and, decisions or whatever, we have team members that we don't get along with a lot of the times, and breaks are good in between. Sorry guys, if you're watching, but, but this happens, and it's just kind of human for sometimes people to go, you know what, you do your thing, I'm going to go do my thing. And
it's a healthier thing to do.
Yeah, well, and when it comes down to Grant, I wish him the best. A lot of people were like, "Oh, well, they fell apart with Grant's collar tug and everything else." No, I checked as best as I could on that. I think Grant, we spent so much time on the road together,
right.
And not even just that. So Grant at one point had moved from Rhode Island to Utah, and we helped get him back here to Rhode Island. Him and his family were living with us. And beyond that, I was training him as a plumber. And then we were investigating, and then we were, they were living, then the show took off. So we were together 12, 14, 18 hours a day, every day of the week. We didn't get a break from one another. And, I love him and his family dearly, but that wears on you. That does wear. I don't care who it is. And so he ended up leaving the show for his own personal issues. I think where the tension rose was that I was asked to do Ghost Hunters. And we were all asked to do Ghost Hunters, and we were all like, okay, yeah, we'll do it. And then Grant, for whatever reason, I guess decided he wasn't, or there's some mixed information there. But so we're like, all right, well, I was then asked to do Ghost Hunters with a new team. And I didn't like that idea. I mean, Sherry, Steve, Dave, they're family to me. I've known Steve longer than I've known Grant. So I wasn't going to do that because I felt like that was stabbing them in the back, and that was just not right. So I said no. So I decided we started talking to another network, and started talking about putting together a different show. And during that time, Grant, I guess because I turned down the show, Grant was approached again to do the show with the new team, and he agreed. But first off, he didn't tell us. He didn't none of that. So it was kind of like an ouch moment. One of those things where I wouldn't have done it without the team, but you just allowed a show that we built as a team to come back without the team. So and that didn't sit right with a lot of us. And, so we took offense to that. And, from there, the show started, Ghost Hunters to Reboot started off decent and fell really drastically quick. Ghost Nation was doing phenomenal. And it came to a point where, Ghost Hunters was canceled. And I think it's because people realized, Taps, it was a team, a legit team. We weren't put together. And there's some great people who are on that show. Brian and Rochelle, two of my dearest friends.
Good people.
But, yeah, exactly. They are. But, so Ghost Hunters was canceled, and we were asked at Travel if we would consider taking back Ghost Hunters. And they said, if you want, you take it back. I said, well, I'll only take it back with the team, and if the whole team agrees on it. So Sherry, Steve, Dave, me, we all sat around and discussed it. And figured we had built it. We didn't want to see it die out the way it did. So we took it back.
So you're a loyal guy. You believe in loyalty.
Well, you guys have known me a long time. So nothing's ever been about money to me. It's never been about stuff like that. And I think you guys, know that because you've dealt with me and you've seen the person I am. So Steve, Dave, I mean, they've been friends. Sherry's been a friend for 20 years. Steve's 30 plus years. I just could never sleep knowing that I screwed them over. I don't screw anybody over. That's just not in my nature. So yeah, it was all about as a team. I mean, and if Steve or Dave or Sherry didn't want to do Ghost Hunters, then we wouldn't have done it because it was about all of us agreeing.
Well, you had mentioned that you trust them as well. You've worked with them forever.
Yeah, and I know that when Sherry or Steve or Dave, they tell me something, I know that it's true. And I know that if I'm in a situation or I'm in a place that every single one of them have my back in a heartbeat. So, and I think that's important, especially when you're on an investigation, because you never know what you're walking into. You never know what you're dealing with. So to know that you have people that you can count on when things are heated or when things really are bad, I think that's the most important thing. And also, if I had taken Ghost Hunters with a new team, that would have put me here and all the teammates, these new teams, like I would have been on a pedestal. And it's never been about Jason Hawes being on this pedestal above everybody. You know, TAPS has always been a group where we all work together independently. Yeah, I might have started it, but it's only there because everybody's put their effort into building it.
Right. Yeah. And that's why, like I said, for me, again, just real quickly on the whole show aspect of it, I have nothing against the Ghost Hunter reboot. Like you said, Brian, Rochelle, nice people. They did a good job. I mean, I really didn't watch the show that long, but me as a viewer, I could tell it was casted right off the bat.
There's just a disconnect.
There was no chemistry. You could tell these people really didn't know each other that well. As they were together, whereas you guys were like instant, you know, Steve and Dave, you know, Amy and Chris.
Well, it was funny. So the first time I ever met Brian and Rochelle, and this will tell you the person I am, because so when Ghost Hunters only had so many episodes left, and we had just signed a deal for Ghost Nation to do 20 episodes. So I sat down with the network and I said, here's the deal. Right now we are airing on Sundays. I said, I want to be on Wednesday nights the exact same time Ghost Hunters is on. They're like, why? I go, because I like playing the odds. You know, people are going to tune into Ghost Hunters or tune into Ghost Nation. They go, yeah, but what if Ghost Hunters takes your viewership away? I said, well, what if we take theirs? They're like, well, and they argued with me back and forth. And I said, you know what? Here's the deal. I got 20 episodes of Ghost Nation. They have 10 episodes of Ghost Hunters left. Even if I take a hit on 10, I can make it up on the back 10. And so there were some arguments. And finally I said, no, this is what I want. And Travel Channel came out and said, okay. So I put us head to head against Ghost Hunters. And it was nothing personal, but it was no, you know what? That's bullshit. It was 100%. It was 100% personal. Let's just admit the truth. It was 100% personal because I was like, this team that's with me are the ones who built that damn show. So if it's going to go down, I'm going to help put that nail in its coffin and call it a day. And I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it for a blink of an eye because it was the best choice I made. You got to remember, let's look at it. I mean, Taps and Steve, Dave, Sherry, they've all stayed with me for a reason. And it's because I would have never screwed them over.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. You know, when that whole thing was going on,
there's Dustin. There's Dustin in there.
I see Dustin.
And that was the thing. When I took back Ghost Hunters, that was a big thing. And I contacted Dustin, Chris Williams, everybody else. I was like, guys, I'd like to bring you back on as many shows as we can. And because it was always about bringing back everybody who made the show a success and showing. I mean, these are the people who I built this show with. Yeah. So I made sure I reached out to Dustin. I reached out to Chris. You had Amy and Adam on and stuff because it was all about bringing as many of the originals back that helped make the show what it was. It's not about Jason Hawes and his team. It's about the team.
But when you found out about the other show and that they were using the name, I mean, that had to be like, what the? Did you know?
You know what? It was one of those things that it pissed me off, but it gave me some serious ambition.
I know what that's like.
And that was why when it came down to it, I was like, put me up directly head to head, same time that they're on, same night they're on, and let the fans decide. Let the people who watch the show.
Now I see why
I'm the
you
same
like
way.
Jason.
I'm the same way.
You get him upset, he goes the other way.
That
fire
hey, you know what?
him.
Life is a game of chess, bottom line.
Yeah,
so, and it's you know, and I felt that I had all the right pieces.
It is rocket fuel. If you can either let that drag you down, or you can take it and say, you know what, watch this.
Well, Danielle said, when you got the name back, how did that make you feel? That the team was right back where it belonged?
You know what? I don't think you need me to explain it.
No, I don't think so. But
you know, it was one of those, you know, it was great. It was tough because one of those things where, like, I had met up with Brian and Rochelle, and we'd been friends and everything else. And I never wanted to screw anybody. I never wanted to screw over anybody, but I didn't want the people I loved to be screwed in the process. So it's one of those, and Brian and Rochelle were always great about it. Even Brian had reached out and he's like, the show's right back where it should be, man. And you know what? That was probably one of the strongest things somebody could have ever said, because that meant everything. It was never anything personal to any of them. It was one of those things where this show is what it was because of all these people who gave their time and effort and were a part of it. And I'd be damned if those people aren't going to be a part of it. I mean, why were none of the past cast members on the reboot?
Yeah.
Come on, you had Dustin, you had Chris, you had all these people. They could have been on there. They could have been a part of the reboot. Why weren't they?
Good quality people too. Really good quality people.
So the fact of the matter is, that's when I took it back. That's why I made sure they were all coming back. Yeah.
Again, I remember when I saw the promotion for the new Ghost Hunters, and I just was like, what, why is? But again, I talk to Grant every so often. I have nothing really again. I like Grant. I think he's.
I wish Grant the best. I do. It's just
Grant's a fascinating guy too. The two of you together, knowing what I know about you and speaking to him a little bit here and there, you two together must have been. Again, you were. Look how far you guys went together. But. Like I said, relationships, it happens. And
it's like the big bands that are famous that
that's what we're talking about too.
So much
it's like some band touring with the guitarist and calling themselves Guns N' Roses when
I mean, if Grant called me tomorrow and needed me, I'd be there in a heartbeat. I would, because that's just who I am.
Right.
But I just don't feel what was done was right. Or respectful to all those who built it.
So let's switch gears. There's some paranormal questions I got for you, Jason. I know we're probably not going to be able to do this for a while because you're busy. Well, the one I'm seeing already, people are going to ask this question about the show. Where is the show? What's going on with the show? They're asking us about all the travel shows.
So right now we're starting talks. It's one of those things where the nice thing about Ghost Hunters is networks don't own it. And I think that's important. So if things don't seem to be going the way or following the path that we feel is the correct path, then we can look for another home. And I think that's important. So, I mean, we're talking with some others right now, and I'm also messing around with YouTube, doing some stuff on there. But yeah, so that's pretty much where it stands right now. Is we're starting to talk and go from there. And we'll see what happens. But I mean, Ghost Hunters is the mothership. It's pretty much started the genre of paranormal television.
Sure
so did. I'm pretty sure it could find a home anywhere. It's just finding a home that allows it to stay real. And that's what it's about to us. I'm not going to sign a deal with just anybody and they're going to try to change up the show or make it something that it was never about. I mean, I'm not going to run around and tell you, oh my God, there's a demon in this house because they want that for the ratings. I won't sell my soul for anything.
Well, and it was sort of the same situation between Sci-Fi and, the moves that you, when you went off the air the first time,
with Sci-Fi, it was, the problem that was going on there was we were considered the tentpole show. So we were the highest watched show on their network. And so they were like airing 4 episodes here to try to promote a show right after us. And that was getting old. And I had asked them, I was asked to do it season 11, and they had promised that they, part of the deal was, all right, but we're going to air them consecutively. And that's what we were told. And then all of a sudden, right before it aired, they said, well, we're going to air 7 and then this. And that's not what you told me. And, I'm a guy who sticks by my word. So at that point, it was just like, I'm all set. Wish you the best. Good luck. And we walked away.
And you were
and you know what? And Ghost Hunters made sci-fi #1.
Oh, yeah.
It was us and Discovery Channel, Mythbusters, Tori, a good friend of mine, and them. We were the highest watched shows on all of cable on Wednesday nights. So, I mean, kicking themselves in the ass on that one, I bet.
But you were waiting for, because there were times, I mean, even in between coming back on, where I know you were in discussions like you probably are now with other people, but you were waiting for the right vehicle to bring. It had to be the right conditions. Steve, Dave, everybody.
So when it just got to the point where I was like, I'm done with this. So I stepped away for a couple of years, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot out of you, being on the road, filming, and doing the invest. And we don't work for production. Production works for us. So we're running taps, but we're trying to make sure the home team's all set and all the taps family groups are all set. But I'm also running production and trying to make sure everything's being all set here. So it takes a lot. I mean, when I started filming Ghost Hunters, my twin sons were 4 days old.
Ooh, weird.
Yeah, they were literally 4 days old. And so, I mean, you can imagine it was a lot of time.
Yeah.
And we're talking 25 episodes a year plus a 6-hour live show.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a butt kicker. It was.
So let's get into a little bit of paranormal stuff before you have to log off here. I was watching this show on Amazon about near-death experiences, and they had several cases where they, talked to the people about what happened to them when they died and they came back. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it is spiritual, or do you think it's a medical thing that causes the things that they see and experience?
Like a chemical reaction?
Yeah, like the brain protecting itself.
Well, I'm a firm believer that there's something after this. I've just seen too much evidence that would support it. So there's got to be something after this. What that is, I'm not 100% sure of yet. I don't look at things like heaven and hell and all that stuff, but I believe there's a higher power out there, and I definitely believe that there's something more when we finally close our eyes here. And then you got to sit there and wonder, I mean, is this life the hell that people really consider? Because break it down, I mean, in this world is where we lose loved ones, where we suffer the greatest loss, where we suffer the hardest times. So what if this was hell? I mean, you create these wonderful things, these beautiful families, but then you spend years of your life losing loved ones. And as you all know, and so, I mean, the toughest times in your life come in this life. So, I truly believe that there's something after this. It'd be interesting to see. My good friend Meatloaf's checking it out right now. I know that.
Yeah. And again, it's because one of the statements that were made during that special was this woman who went and came back, and she was just like, until you die, when you die, you're plugged into the, like you said, the eternal consciousness, whatever that is, and you feel love, you feel warmth, you don't feel pain, blah, blah. And then she said that living beings were trying to find that same plug in other people, but it's not the same here. So I thought that was really interesting, that because I do believe, like you said, I don't know if it's God, if you want to call it God, but I do believe that somewhere, somehow the universe makes sense energy wise, and everything being intertwined, and we don't get that big picture here because we're not wired to, but maybe there we do. I don't know.
Yeah. And if there is a place where you're not dealing with as much loss and sadness, I mean, then breaking it down level wise, that would mean that in this life, you were stuck dealing with the greatest ups and the greatest downs. You're dealing with having children, sometimes losing those children in this life, your parents, losing loved ones, losing friends, spouses, love of your lives. I mean, this life beats you up. So
Yeah.
after that all it all equals out.
What about, I've always been curious if you've ever participated in a seance.
I have. I've had some time involved in those. Haven't seen anything to really blow my mind on that. I've been in the room with those. I've been in the room with exorcisms that have gone on. Yeah, there's some weird stuff out there. Seances I've never really had any great experiences with.
I always wondered that about you because, again, one thing I was surprised that years and years and years ago, I picked up a book that you and Grant had written, and there was a lot of stuff in there about elementals and I think fairies. And I was, again, I only knew you from the show. So I'm looking at you from the TV show perspective of this guy is just, what he sees, what he could debunk is what he, believes. He's a, see it to believe it type of guy. And then I'm reading all that and I'm thinking, well, that's kind of out there, And
because there's a whole lot of things in this world that we can't see.
Right.
You can't see the air, but it's there. So,
right.
But I'm a firm believer that there's spirits and other types of things that are out there that we don't commonly deal with. And we've been brought in on investigations that there's been claims of elemental activity, these homes in the woods and these bangings on the side of the house or banging on the window, but nobody's there. So I'm one of those people where I'm a firm believer that there's a lot more than just human spirits out there. We'd be naive to think that if we pass, we're the only ghost. I mean, the ghost of dog, ghosts of cats, ghosts of deer. There's been claims that exactly. But there's been claims that we've been called into on, ghost deers, people seeing deers on a part of a highway that they're notorious for getting hit by semis and stuff on. So we'd be naive to think that when we pass, we're the only ones that are able to take on a spirit form.
I agree with that. And people will often, about their cat came to visit them or their dog. I wish one of my dogs would come to visit, but never happened. But
think of that every time you step on an ant.
Oh, wow.
Think of that every time you step on an ant or you kill a bee or something like that.
Thanks for putting that in my head.
Exactly. I mean, geez.
What about your opinion on, everybody has a theory on different things. Spirits being trapped at a location. You go to a place like Penhurst, like Trans, Allegheny, and the spirits are there lingering, still in pain or still. What are your thoughts on?
I don't look at it like that. I look at so if it's an intelligent spirit, it can go wherever it wants. If it's hanging out in a certain area for a certain reason, then I understand that. But I look more like if something's stuck in an area, it's not really a spirit. It's more like a residual type haunt. So it's the energy of a traumatic experience or whatever that's trapped within a rock in the foundation or anything. And it's just replaying itself over and over again. So, but I don't think a human, like an intelligent spirit, is trapped anywhere.
No, I don't see the sense.
Just like I don't.
For me.
Yeah, just like I don't believe in. I just posted a YouTube video earlier where I was talking with Kenny Biddle, who's a good friend of mine from you guys know him, Skeptical Inquirer, and we were talking about these famous so-called haunted objects where you're going to tell me that a wooden box is able to keep a demon inside. It makes no sense to me. You're going to tell me that a doll can run around and cause you harm and kill you. I don't foresee. First off,
what's funny about that?
If something's out there to kill you, why is it going to take a stuffed little doll and come after you? I mean, no, it take you out itself.
Makes a good movie.
But you know what's funny about that? We were literally just talking about a certain object that's supposed to be really, really haunted and bad, and you have to handle it with gloves and holy water and all this other stuff. Yet this object is taken out on
But you can have dinner
tour
with it.
at different
Oh,
places,
yeah.
and I'm thinking,
Sitting in first class planes, and yeah.
I'm thinking, what if by chance, either on purpose or by accident, someone ever knocked into this thing, and oh my God, you've just released.
Because the truth of the matter is, if something is truly, truly evil, it wouldn't see the light of day, and you wouldn't be traveling, and you wouldn't put it in front of people because of it. End of story.
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest. So if there is some negative entity out there, some demonic type spirit that's been around for thousands of years, even before we as a human race existed, and it decided to possess a doll to take you out, kind of sounds pretty stupid to me. It just doesn't make sense.
Hey, it happened with Chucky. That was real.
Yeah, well, I mean, made for a great movie, and
So-
by the looks of it, a whole bunch of stories that came after it. But yeah,
So you don't believe that, again, this is going back to the other thing. You don't believe that somehow, some way, that hypothetically, if I'm in a space that I could, in theory, either channel in a spirit or tap into whatever plane of existence that they may exist on when they were occupying that space, perhaps, like kind of a crossing the, like a parallel time thing. Like if I'm in a space, hospital, whatever, and I'm there talking to Mary Smith, who died in this room, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't believe that there's a way that I could channel her in and kind of tap into whatever her existence was in that area?
Well, I feel
mean?
that there's different types of haunting. So there's a type of haunting that is more like time overlapping. So
Right.
where if you're at a hospital and you're talking to a Mary Smith who's at the hospital, is Mary Smith still, is she in spirit form, or is she living a normal day in her life when she was alive in the hospital, and everything's still going like it was 30 years ago when she was alive? So now we're talking about time overlapping on one another. And that's a different type of haunting, where it makes you question if that's sometimes how people like Chip Coffey or others are able to connect with these spirits. It's they're living a day in their life, we're living a day in ours, and somehow that area between us is overlapping, and they're hearing us and we're hearing them. So that's the kind of thing. So if we could figure out how to, connect the times together, I mean, very possibly you could be talking to Mary 30 years ago while she's working her nurse job at the hospital she's still working at. It's just, and time is always present. It's just always there. So
I mean, it's an interesting theory, but I'm just wondering if that was, because I believe in kind of channeling in a way. I do believe, I mean, even with my mom in some capacity who passed, to COVID, I do believe that I can't interact with her and correspond with her. But I do believe that when I'm down or I'm in need or things happen, I ask for a sign, not something usual or out of the norm. And I do believe that my mom will give me a sign. I really do.
Well, I believe that she can visit you. I believe that she can come and visit you and so forth. I don't think that somebody can sit there and be like a human Ouija board and bring a ghost in and start telling you what that person's saying.
That's more or less what I'm saying.
Like when my father passed, my father had MS and cancer, and they had said he wouldn't last more than 3 years, and that stubborn SOB went 30 years, to the point where he ended up having a stroke, and they said he wouldn't last more than a day, and he still went 3 weeks. He was just one of the toughest guys I ever knew. Not the nicest guy, but one of the toughest guys. And I was getting ready to do a Beyond Reality show. It was my first show back. And I was sitting there in my office, and I've got a pressured door because it's a soundproof room. And the door literally has a piston, so you got to pull it open. The only time ever that door opened was right before the show started. And I got this overwhelming feeling of my father, which is, my father had such a presence about him. I mean, you just knew when he was around. And I remember even talking to Jim, and my co-host on the show, and I go, Jim, I'm going to need like 2 or 3 minutes here before I go live. Because we were live on 108 channels. And it was just, I knew my dad was there at that moment. And it was just one of those things. So I think he, for whatever reason, came and decided to stop by. but so I do believe that you can be visited, that they can come back and they can see you. I just don't think somebody is going to charge you $500 and then sit back and, and start telling you what your loved one's saying. I mean, that's especially this day and age where, I mean, they can find anything.
I know.
Yeah, and it's also tough too. And it's like, all right, but if somebody's communicating to somebody to tell you, why are they giving them random bits and pieces that they're throwing out? I mean, why not a whole word or something to describe it? So
I had mentioned that to Chip one time and to other mediums, because all mediums share trauma. They had some kind of traumatic thing happen to them in their lives when they were young. Maybe that attributes to their quote unquote gift. But I said, if that were me, I'm sure you would be the same. If I woke up tomorrow with that ability, I'd lock myself in a room and I try to get every bit of information that I could about the afterlife and how it works and how to better. Yeah, I would go nuts with notebooks. It'd be like my writing on the wall. I know I would be, because well,
I think I'd be more concerned on like if I could talk to my father, I wouldn't want to know about all what's after. I want to still find that out on my own, but I want to know that he's finally in a good place, that he's finally happy. I mean, my dad was a mean man. He was 6'4". He was just a mean man. And us kids, all six of us, had a very hard upbringing with him. But so you look at it like, are you finally in a happy place, Dad? Are you finally in a place that you're not angry all the time, that violence isn't your daily routine? I mean, a lot of people don't realize that, but I grew up in a house that was extremely violent. I was thrown out. I was 15 years old, living in the back of a Hyundai because, because you get to the point where you get fed up being. Yeah, I spent 2 years in anger management when I was younger, and I had to, because I would go home, I'd get my ass kicked by my dad, or my sisters would, or I'd take whatever beating I could, try to keep them from it. But and then I would go out and I would try to beat up anybody I could. This when you're younger, because you know what, you feel this big, and going out and beating somebody up makes you feel this big. And come to a realization at one point, you're like, this is just, I'm taking everything I feel dealing with my old man, and I'm going and I'm projecting that on somebody else. And you realize that. So, one time I fought back, I defended myself, and I did better than him in the situation. Well, and he was getting ready to take my sister to a father-daughter dance. So he threw me out. And told me, he goes, when I get home from father-daughter dance, you better not be here. And I wasn't. I knew what that meant. So I literally lived in the back of a Hyundai for like 3-4 weeks till I could scour up just enough money to get a little place to stay. And so he would. But you look at it, and my father came from a house of alcoholics, extremely high violence, and everything else. And their parents came from that. So when the wife and when I found out I was going to be a father for the first time, the one thing I promised her, because she was in that house with me, she saw it. I promised her, I said, you know what? I'll never raise my hand in anger to any of our kids. And I always stay true to that. And never have, never will. And seeing all that torment my father went through, looking back at it now and sitting there thinking, because back then you think, wow, he's an asshole. Yeah. Now you look back and you're like, wow, man, that he was in pain, and his way of dealing with that pain was projecting that pain onto other people. And I started going down that same path when I was younger. I realized I just didn't want, that wasn't me. That's not how I ever wanted to be. So now honestly, it just gets to the point where if I could talk to my father, I'd just be like, Dad, man, hopefully you're in a good place. You're not hurting anymore. You're not angry anymore. That's all I'd want to know. If I could talk to him on the other side, that's all that would matter to me.
And again, I get that. And again, as adults, we can rationalize things a lot better and see. We never, as kids, see our parents as human. We don't get what being an adult is, bills and children and all.
Not until you become an adult.
Yeah, exactly. And my mom, I never knew all that my mom did until I had my own children. And I was just like, this woman raised 4 kids on welfare. She was completely deaf. And again, you broke the cycle of that whole thing. And no offense to your father, but he could have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he could have. And that's the thing. And that's where you know, honestly, the best thing that ever happened to me was I got in a lot of trouble when I was younger, again, because I was not a nice person. And but the best thing that ever happened was spending 2 years in anger management and stuff, and just realizing that when I leave the house and I go find somebody and I instigate a fight so I can punch people, I'm doing the same thing my dad's doing at home to try to make myself feel better. And so it's just one of those things that you realize really quick. But you know, so the best thing, it's really the best thing that ever happened. That becoming a father at a young age, wouldn't recommend it, but you know what? It made me become so much better of a person, because when you realize that you're holding a little girl, I mean, you're like, geez, it turns you into a big teddy bear. You know the damage you can cause, but you don't have to. Unless their boyfriends or something do something, then you need to.
But that is a characteristic choice. That's a strength that comes from within, because there are two sides to that coin. You can either just keep perpetuating that, or like I had horrible things happen to me by family members that were, I cut out the outside family members. The only ones I have, and I come from a huge family, I only deal with immediate family, because of the brutality and the nastiness that I saw growing up that was inhuman. And when like you said, when I had my girls, I knew that was something I would never perpetrate on them or to another human being if I could help it.
Did you reconcile with your father at any point and have a?
I did. You know, my father was in the nursing home down the road here, and I was pretty much in charge of all his care and everything else. You know, we had a lot of talks, and especially at the end, I remember after his stroke. I mean, it was one thing. I never saw my father cry, but one time after a stroke, I mean, he started crying, and he told me right out. He goes, I don't want to die because I'm scared of what I'm going to have to deal with on the other side. And so, and that really humanized him to me. But you know, I wouldn't change the way I grew up. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't ideal, but I wouldn't change it for anything, because it led me down the path that I've followed. But you know, but you get to a point when you're younger and you're like, well, what are you good at? Well, I'm really good at violence. But that's what is that? Where's that going to get you in life?
Jail.
It's worth it. Yeah, exactly. That's what it comes down to.
You said something very profound, and I can't reveal the conversation because the person I had it with is still living, and I would never want to hurt that person. I love that person dearly. They made a lot of mistakes in their life, but they're much older now, and they're facing their mortality. And the discussion I had with this person was just like what you had with your dad. I saw him break down, and I saw the underbelly of this person. And in that moment, I knew I could forgive this person because of that.
Yeah, I think you get to the point you can forgive.
You don't forget.
I don't know if you can really fully forget. You know, you can mostly forgive. You can never forget. You know, I'll be honest. I mean, you still deal with things to this day. And it's like, you know, I didn't come from a house that it was a common thing to walk up and hug your kids or anything else, you know, but I've always made that such an important part of my life that, you know, every time my daughters or my boys would come off that football field, they'd walk right up, they'd give us a hug. You know, every time I see them, I give them a hug. It's always, so it's one of those things where you can only try to improve from what you had.
Yep.
And that's it.
Did you deal with hate? Did you have hate towards?
You know, I think
I had that, and I had to come to terms with it.
Yeah.
And that's when I released it, having that conversation.
Yeah, I think my problem was I had hate towards everybody.
Yep.
Because it's one of those things where if that's happening to you at home from, I mean, you're one of your parents, it's like somebody who's supposed to love you unconditionally, then how's the random person on the road? So you get to a point where everybody is a combatant, everybody is a negative situation. And then you realize that's not good. I mean, let me tell you, anger is a cancer, and
Yep.
it eats you alive. It does. And I can say I think the last 10 years of my life have been so just anger free. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, fine. I mean, it is what it is. This is just who I am. You're going to either accept me or you're not. I can build my list of friends or I can build my list of enemies, but either way, I'm not looking to, get into a headbutting contest with you.
And again, the thing is too, you carry those demons around with you, because I did that most of my life until you get to a point where you really understand what it all means in your life. And like you said, it is about not repeating that crap and being a better man, in your case, in my case, to my kids. My mother always instilled me, kids come first. My father left when I was 2, and then that helps along with the healing and you just being a better person, and then instilling that into your children so that then they carry that forward.
So it's funny, my boys are big. They're big kids. I'm a dwarf to them. And it was it was like 6 months ago or whatever. Austin, who's like 230 pounds, built like a brick shit house, 6'3". He said something at the counter, joking around, and I turned to him and I jokingly, because I go, boy, I'll knock you on your ass. And he turns around and he goes, "You really think you can?" I'm like, "Oh damn!" So it's one of those things where I wouldn't, even if I was angry, those boys are not ones I'd want to get into it with. I'll tell you that much. Because I don't heal like I used to. It's like,
but I appreciate it, Jason. Again, this turned into like a Dr. Phil episode somehow.
It's all good, man. It's all good. I love coming on. I can't wait to New Jersey Pair Unity, man.
Hey, November 2nd and 3rd, Jason will be here in Jersey with the rest of the Ghost Hunter crew.
We'll torch him a little more.
A little bit. But Jason, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And
thanks for having me, you guys. I love to all you guys. Stay safe out there, and loved everybody in the comments. And
you had all of them. You had Chris on here. Chris Williams was here.
Oh yeah, they were all here. Dustin, they were all here.
Oh, Chris Williams is only on here to see if I talk shit about her. That's what she's on.
I can't stand that. You're getting all the attention. We'll bring you guys on. All right, Jason.
Well,
thanks
good.
a lot.
Well, Chris is coming this year, right?
Yes, she'll be there.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's awesome. Well, you guys stay safe. We'll talk soon.
All right, Jason. Take care.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
Wow. How about that, huh? I'll take my ears off. But again, having Jason on again was really, really cool that he agreed to do that. He's busy. He doesn't do a lot of these. But we went all over the place. The idea was to keep it paranormal and to talk about, I wanted to really, about his experiences, with John Zaffis and all that. We were planning on getting into a lot of that, but we got into everything pretty much. And again, you got to see, I love that even with John and others, we get to really, and Chris Williams, we get to meet the real person,
People.
Yeah.
We get to meet real people that are every day, not just what you see on TV, on shows. These are people that have so much behind them. So, yeah.
No, it was great for me. I mean, again, I you can't really see it here because it's not all clear, but I had when I meet a guy like Jason or I get a chance to talk to them, which isn't that often, I want to know every paranormal theory and everything.
Because they're brave and they're courageous and they're willing to put everything out there and to talk openly and honestly. And that is a rare trait out there today.
Yeah.
And this is why interviews like this, and I will sit back and be quiet because one, John's an amazing interviewer, and two, it's just that the information that's coming in, you don't want to stop that. It's just too important.
So, guys, thank you for watching, even if you're Jason Hawes fans, which I'm sure a lot of you are. We're New Jersey Paranormal. Didn't say that in the beginning. I'm John. This is Chris. We have a lot of content on this page. We do live investigations. We do a lot of these interviews. We sometimes just have paranormal discussions, and hopefully
sometimes just personal discussions.
Yes. Hopefully you guys stick with us and keep watching us, and come to our events. If you're in Jersey or around Jersey, we do a lot of public ghost hunts. So thanks for watching, everyone.
Have a good night.
We'll be back soon.
Please stay safe, stay healthy, and please remember, it's really important. Be kind to each other. Good night.
Night, everybody.